The EBS Valiant exploded out of FTL and into a nightmare, alarms blaring as sensors detected hundreds of Eliani warships relentlessly pounding the defenseless human colony on Kepler 442b, wiping out entire cities from orbit and slaughtering thousands. Captain Eric Turner gripped the arms of his command chair, knuckles white as he took in the horrific scene. The colony's meager defense force had already been decimated, smoking wreckage tumbling through the void. Missile contrails and energy beams still crisscrossed the starfield. As the Eliani pressed their assault, torpedoes streaking down to slam into the planet's surface with devastating effect. This was humanity's darkest hour. The ruthless Eliani, led by the priest-king Spica the Eternal, had long viewed humans as an inferior species to be conquered or exterminated. Now they aimed to seize this vital foothold in human space and open the door for a full-scale invasion. Millions of lives hung in the balance, both here and across Earth's fledgling interstellar colonies. The Valiant was all that stood between the Eliani and galactic domination. She was Earth's trump card, constructed in total secrecy by humanity's greatest minds. Equipped with advanced AI, devastating energy weapons, and an experimental FTL drive, she had been built for one purpose: to face humanity's extinction head-on and say, "Not today." But the Valiant was untested, her capabilities unproven outside a simulation. Commander Turner had prayed this day would never come. Now, as his ship hurtled toward the raging battle ahead, he steadied his nerves, keenly aware that his actions in the next few minutes would decide the fate of the human race. The deck shuddered as the helmsman threw the Valiant into a banking maneuver, trying to shake a swarm of incoming torpedoes. Turner finally managed to find his voice, crew turning to him expectantly, faces tight with barely suppressed terror. "This is it," Turner said. "What the Valiant was built for. Why we were chosen for this mission. The survival of our species depends on us. Humanity is down to its last chips, its back against the wall. Time to show those Eliani bastards what happens when you push humans too far. All hands battle stations. Let's send these scaly sons of bitches straight to hell." A ragged cheer went up from the bridge crew as klaxons began to sound, the bone-shaking thrum of the Valiant's drives pushing to full military power. There was no more time for doubt or indecision. Humanity's darkest hour had come, and the Valiant would meet it, guns blazing, to the bitter end. "AI, scan that Eliani fleet," Turner barked. "I want numbers, ship classes, formation, and tag their command vessels." "Analyzing now, Captain," the Valiant's crisp artificial voice responded. Readouts and diagrams flashed across the bridge consoles as the ship's advanced sensor arrays probed the enemy armada. Eliani fleet composition as follows: 12 battleships, 36 cruisers, 92 destroyers, 148 frigates, 8 vessels identified as probable fleet command ships based on comms, traffic, and energy signatures. Turner studied the tactical display grimly, an audacious plan taking shape in his mind. They couldn't win a straight slugging match, not against those numbers, but if they could sow chaos in the enemy ranks, disrupt their chain of command. He jabbed a finger at the pulsing red icons of the Eliani command ships. "That's our play. Target the nearest command vessel with the antimatter beam, full power. Then ready a spread of fusion missiles for the rest and spin up the FTL. We're going to rattle their cage." The weapons officer, Lieutenant Sanchez, input the firing solution with a wolfish grin. "Antimatter beam locked on target, Captain. Ready to fire on your command." Turner allowed himself a tight smile. "Let's give the Eliani a wake-up call. Fire!" A brilliant lance of white light erupted from the Valiant's prow as the experimental weapon discharged. The concentrated stream of antimatter particles crossed the vast distance in heartbeats and speared an Eliani battleship amidships, annihilating its shields instantly. The beam punched clean through the ship's hull and impacted the main reactor. For a split second, the stricken warship seemed to bulge obscenely. Then its power core detonated, consuming the mighty vessel in a miniature supernova. A barrage of fusion warheads leapt away from the Valiant's launch tubes, arcing toward the distant Eliani command ships. Even as the missiles streaked through space, The Valiant's FTL drive tore a hole in reality. The ship simply vanished, leaving the enemy fleet in confused disarray, their commander's sudden destruction throwing their bombardment into chaos. The fusion missiles slammed home, their antimatter warheads eradicating several more battleships in sun-bright fireballs. Iliani ships scattered, their tight formations unraveling. And at that instant, the Valiant exploded back into normal space behind the enemy fleet, weapons already flaring. A fusillade of railgun slugs and plasma bolts hammered into the Iliani's unshielded aft quarters at point-blank range, reaving armor and ripping open hull plates. Turner kept the barrage up until the last possible second, then wrenched the ship into evasive maneuvers as the enemy began to react. On the monstrous command ship at the heart of the Iliani fleet, Priest King Spicter the Eternal rose slowly from his throne, eyes blazing with rage as he beheld the havoc this lone human vessel had wrought. The damned primates had surprised him, he'd grant them that. They would suffer all the more for it. "So the cattle have grown claws," Spiker snarled. "Scramble fighter screens, I want that ship taken apart plate by plate if need be." Iliani fighters boiled from their motherships like enraged hornets, plasma cannons throwing off baleful light. They fell upon the Valiant in a lethal swarm, pummeling its shields with streams of incandescent fire. "Shields at 60% and dropping," the Valiant's tactical officer yelled over the din of overstressed energy conduits. "We can't take this for long." The Valiant's AI worked with inhuman speed and precision, directing pinpoint railgun bursts and plasma bolts to SWAT scores of Iliani fighters from the void. The ship's CIWS systems flared like lethal constellations, spewing tungsten and superheated matter at their attackers. But for every fighter destroyed, 3 more seemed to take its place, and the Valiant was far from unscathed, its shields opaque with strain, hull pitted and scorched by plasma impacts. Warning indicators screamed for attention across the bridge consoles. They had bloodied the Iliani's noses, bought a brief respite for the colony below, but now it was time to run or die. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple clusters of life signs on the surface near our position," the sensor officer reported, her voice tight with controlled urgency. "Kepler 442b's evacuation must have been incomplete. If we can get in close enough, then our transporters can snatch those poor bastards before the Iliani overrun them," Turner finished grimly. Signal the colony. Let them know to get their people to any open ground, fast as they can. Helm, get us into the atmosphere. We're not leaving anyone behind." The Valiant knifed into Kepler 442b's skies like a thunderbolt, its abused shields blazing against the heat of re-entry. Turner divided his attention between their perilous atmospheric descent and the TAC display, watching with dread as a dozen Iliani transports moved to intercept them. Each of those ugly vessels would be crammed with Speaker's Chosen, heavily armed, genetically engineered killing machines eager to butcher and enslave. "Contact the colony militia," Turner said, his face hardened. "Warn them they're about to have company and tell them to hold the line, no matter the consequences." The Valiant screamed over the torn and burning landscape of Kepler 442b, zeroing in on the huddled clusters of survivors. Behind it, like descending carrion birds, came the merciless transports of the Iliani, disgorging hundreds of fanatical warriors into the ruins of humanity's farthest colony. The Valiant plunged through Kepler 442b's atmosphere, hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Turner's eyes darted between tactical displays as he processed the dire situation unfolding below. "Multiple Iliani troop transports inbound to survivor clusters," the AI reported. "Estimated time to intercept, 3 minutes. Turner's mind focused. "Not on my watch. Prep the Marine contingent for immediate drop. We're going in hot." Klaxons blared as the ship's complement of elite Marines scrambled to their drop pods. Sergeant Hawkins, a scarred veteran of a dozen campaigns, strapped himself in and gave a thumbs-up to his squad. "Listen up, ladies," Hawkins growled over the comm. "We hit dirt in 30 seconds. Our job is to form a perimeter and hold the line so these civvies can evac. The Iliani want to wipe humanity off the map. Let's show them why that's a bad fucking idea." The pods streaked from the Valiant's launch bays, racing the Eleani transports to the surface. They slammed into the scorched earth with bone-jarring force, hatches blowing open before they'd even stopped moving. Hawkins was first out, plasma rifle at the ready. "Move, move, move!" he bellowed as his Marines fanned out, power armor whining as they took up defensive positions. They'd barely gotten set when the first wave of Eleani shock troops hit. Scaly reptilian faces snarled with bloodlust as they charged the human lines. "Light 'em up," Hawkins roared. A storm of plasma bolts and railgun slugs tore into the Eleani ranks. Bodies fell, but more took their place, returning fire with their own energy weapons. Meanwhile, the Valiant touched down near the largest group of survivors. Medical teams rushed out to begin triage as security personnel herded shell-shocked colonists toward the ship. "Captain," the AI's voice crackled over the comm, "Eleani energy dampening fields detected. Transporter range and capacity severely limited." Turner swore. "How many can we beam up at once?" "No more than 10 at a time, sir, and only within 50 meters of the ship." He did some quick mental math. With hundreds still waiting and the Marines barely holding it, they needed more time. "New plan," Turner announced. "We're taking off, going to draw their fire, buy the ground team some breathing room." The Valiant's engines roared to life, lifting the massive ship back into the air. Its weapon systems came online, railguns and plasma cannons opening up on the Eleani forces below. The alien commander took the bait. Hundreds of Eleani troops activated their grav packs, rocketing after the Valiant in pursuit. Turner threw the ship into a series of wild maneuvers, weaving through canyons and ruins. Eleani plasma bolts splashed against the shields, alarms wailing as power levels dipped dangerously. "Divert all non-essential power to shields," Turner ordered, "and someone get me a damage report." But the gambit was working. The comm crackled with Sergeant Hawkins' gruff voice. "Whatever you're doing up there, keep it up. We've almost got the last group loaded." Turner allowed himself a grim smile. Maybe they'd pull this off after. The smile vanished as 3 titanic shapes rose from the inferno below. Eleani mech suits, each as tall as a building, jam-packed with weaponry. A familiar, sneering face flickered to life on the main view screen. Speaker the Eternal, looking decidedly unamused. "Did you think you could save them all, human?" the Eleani leader hissed. "My titans will grind your pathetic resistance to dust." The mechs lumbered forward, energy cannons glowing with barely contained power. Turner knew the Valiant couldn't withstand a direct hit from those weapons. His comm pinged again, Hawkins' voice tight with strain. "Captain, last civilians are secure, but we can't hold much longer. These bastards just keep coming." Turner's mind raced. The colonists were safe, but his Marines were about to be overrun, and those titans. He had seconds to make a call, one that would determine not just the fate of this battle, but potentially the entire war. Turner took a deep breath and keyed the ship-wide comm. Turner's eyes darted between tactical displays as the Titan's massive energy cannons swiveled towards the Valiant. His mind raced. There was no time left. On the ground, Sergeant Hawkins heard the order and felt his stomach drop. "You heard the captain. Move your asses." His squad sprinted for the Valiant's landing ramp, plasma bolts from Eleani troops sizzling past their ears. Hawkins provided covering fire, his rifle spitting superheated death at the alien warriors. The last Marine stumbled up the ramp and Hawkins followed, diving through as it began to close. He hit the deck hard, rolling to his feet as the ship lurched upward. On the bridge, Turner slammed the throttle to maximum. The Valiant rocketed skyward, engines screaming in protest. A blinding flash lit up the view screen as one of the Titans fired. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring. "Shields at 30% and falling!" the tactical officer shouted. Turner's hands flew over the controls, throwing the Valiant into a wild corkscrew. But the Titans tracked them relentlessly, pounding the ship with their immense weaponry. "Prep our last antimatter missile," Turner ordered, his voice grim. The AI's crisp tones cut through the chaos. "Warning. Detonation at this range will cause catastrophic collateral damage to the colony. Turner gritted his teeth. No choice. Target the lead Titan and fire. Then the world went white. A miniature sun bloomed where the Titan had stood. The shockwave slammed into the Valiant, tossing crew members like ragdolls. When Turner's vision cleared, he saw the other two Titans staggering drunkenly, armor plates glowing cherry red. Now's our chance. Take us down. The Valiant plunged toward the colony, engines howling. They skimmed so low that Turner could see individual Eliani troops diving for cover. The ship banked hard, G-forces crushing everyone into their seats, and clawed for altitude. As they broke atmosphere, a new set of alarms joined the cacophony. Turner's mind raced. They'd saved the colonists, but at what cost? Then his eyes fell on the FTL controls. The nav officer paled. Sir, we don't have enough power for a calculated jump. It would be completely blind. Turner nodded grimly. I know. He keyed the ship-wide intercom, his voice echoing through every corridor and hold. This is Commander Turner. The Valiant is dying. Our power core will fail in minutes. Our only chance is a blind FTL jump. He paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. I won't lie to you. We might rematerialize inside a star or the middle of empty space, but it's our only shot. Prepare for immediate jump. Silence fell over the bridge. In the holds below, the rescued colonists huddled together, fear and resignation etched on their faces. Turner met the eyes of each bridge officer in turn. They nodded, ready to face whatever came next. The FTL drive whined to full power. Turner gripped his chair as reality twisted around them. With a final thunderous roar, the Valiant hurled itself into the void. Hope. The Valiant lurched out of hyperspace, systems flickering and failing. Red emergency lighting bathed the bridge in an eerie glow as Commander Turner fought to keep his footing. Status report, he barked, steadying himself against a console. Power reserves critical, sir, the chief engineer reported, fingers flying over his display. We're running on fumes. Turner's eyes swept the darkened bridge. Get me navigation. Where the hell are we? The nav officer's face was illuminated by the soft blue glow of her rebooting console. Sensors coming back online now, sir. But this can't be right. Spit it out, Ensign. We're nowhere, sir. No recognizable star patterns. We're completely off the charts. A tense silence fell over the bridge. Turner's mind raced, weighing their options. Then a ping from the long-range scanners broke the quiet. Sir, faint energy signature detected. It's a habitable world, nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere orbiting a G-type star. Turner's eyes narrowed. How far? At sublight, 3 days, sir. Turner nodded grimly. Plot a course, it's our only shot. The Valiant's engines sputtered to life, pushing the battered ship forward. For a moment, hope flickered in the crew's eyes. Then space itself seemed to tear open. A massive Eliani warship erupted from FTL, flanked by a half-dozen smaller vessels. Turner's blood ran cold as he recognized the flagship's distinctive profile. Evasive maneuver, shouted, but it was too late. The first salvo slammed into the Valiant's weakened shields. Alarms blared as the barrier collapsed, leaving them exposed. Eliani weapons fire tore into the hull, punching through decks and venting atmosphere. Weapons! Turner called out desperately. Turner's mind raced. They were dead in space, no chance of outrunning or outgunning the Eliani fleet. His eyes fell on the fuel readout, and a cold certainty settled over him. All hands, abandon ship, he ordered, his voice steady. Get to the escape pods, now! As the crew scrambled to obey, Turner's fingers flew across the helm controls. He redirected every scrap of remaining power to the engines, plotting a ramming course for Speaker's flagship. This is Commander Turner, he broadcast shipwide. It's been an honor serving with you all. Now go, live, and someday make these bastards pay. The Valiant surged forward, her hull groaning in protest. Turner gripped the controls, watching Spicer's ship grow larger on the monitor. A fierce grin spread across his face as he imagined the alien's shock. The Valiant slammed into the Eliani flagship at relativistic speeds. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then both ships erupted in a catastrophic explosion, a newborn star blazing amid the void. Stunned silence fell over the Eliani fleet. Then chaos erupted as they scrambled to intercept the fleeing human escape pods. Space itself seemed to hiccup, a shimmering distortion spreading outward from the explosion. One by one the escape pods vanished, swallowed by localized wormholes that winked out of existence moments later. On the bridge of his crippled vessel, Spiker the Eternal stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. The human's energy signatures were detected thousands of light-years away, and scattering further with each passing second. A primal scream of rage tore from Spiker's throat, echoing through his ship. Yet even as fury consumed him, a spark of intrigue kindled in his alien mind. These humans were interesting prey. Galaxies away, Sergeant Hawkins's battered escape pod drifted in an ancient asteroid field. His craggy features were illuminated by the glow of a blue-green world, slowly filling the view screen. Hawkins's eyes narrowed as he took in the alien landscape below. It wasn't Earth, it wasn't home, but it was a chance, however slim, at survival. He checked his dwindling oxygen supply and nodded grimly to himself. Whatever came next, he'd face it head-on, and someday, somehow, he'd find a way to make the Eliani pay for everything they'd taken. The escape pod's thrusters fired, beginning its descent toward the unknown world. Hawkins allowed himself a small, humorless smile. The real fight was just beginning. The escape pod shuddered as it established a tenuous orbit around the alien world. Sergeant Hawkins gripped the command console, his weathered face illuminated by flickering displays. "Status report," he barked. Private Chen, her fingers dancing across a nearby terminal, responded, "Orbit's unstable, Sarge. We've got maybe 2 hours before atmospheric drag pulls us down." The 6 other Marines crowded around, their faces etched with exhaustion and uncertainty. Hawkins met each of their eyes in turn. "We're all that's left of our battalion. The colony's gone, the Valiant's gone, but we're still here, and we're going to stay that way." He turned to a young Marine with close-cropped hair. "Corporal Renner, you're my second. I saw what you did back on Kepler. You've got guts, kid." "All right, let's get to work. Chen, fire up the fabbers. We need survival gear now." The pod's fabrication units hummed to life. Molecular assemblers weaving basic survival equipment from raw materials. Hawkins distributed plasma rifles, each Marine checking their weapon with practiced efficiency. "Power's critically low," Chen reported. "We've got one shot at this landing." As if to punctuate her words, the pod lurched violently, alarms blaring. Hawkins' hands flew across the controls. "Heat shielding's gone," he shouted. "Brace for manual re-entry." The pod plummeted through the alien atmosphere, its hull glowing cherry red. Impact rockets sputtered and died. Hawkins fought the controls, executing a desperate series of burns and flares. They slammed into the surface with bone-jarring force, skidding across barren rock before grinding to a halt. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, Hawkins's voice, hoarse but alive. "Sound off." One by one, the Marines reported in. Battered, bruised, but miraculously all accounted for. They emerged from the pod, sealed envirosuits protecting them from the alien air. A landscape of rust and desolation stretched before them. Jagged mountains of orange granite clawed at a blood-red sky. A river of ash meandered through cracked, lifeless plains. "Chen, atmospheric analysis," Hawkins ordered. The private consulted her wrist computer. "Breathable, sir, but barely. No detectable toxins, but oxygen levels are low. World's dying." Hawkins nodded. "All right, standard recon formation. Renner, take Martinez and Wong, head north. The rest of you, with me, move out." The Marines fanned out across the barren terrain. Renner's team carefully navigated a field of razor-sharp rock formations. Suddenly, Wong's scanner pinged. Carefully, they excavated a small cache buried beneath the oxidized soil. Inside, they found what looked like seed pods, each one containing a tiny sphere of liquid. Some kind of plant, maybe? Martinez wondered aloud. How's it still intact after all this time? Meanwhile, Hawkins' team discovered the remnants of an ancient dig site. Desiccated structures of an unknown material jutted from the ground at odd angles. Hawkins' mind raced, formulating a desperate plan. He keyed his comm. All units back to the pod now. Once gathered, Hawkins laid out their options. We use what's left of the pod's power to build a fusion bomb. The blast sends those seed pods and the drone into orbit. With any luck, someone finds our signal before this rock kills us all. The Marines worked feverishly, cannibalizing the pod to construct their makeshift beacon. As the final preparations were made, Corporal Renner stepped forward. "Sir, I'll arm it," he said, his voice steady. "Point-blank range gives us the best shot." Hawkins started to object, but the look in Renner's eyes silenced him. He clasped the young Marine's shoulder. "Make it count, Corporal." The team took cover as Renner approached the device. His fingers steady, he primed the detonator. A soft beeping filled the air, counting down the final seconds. The world went white. When Hawkins' vision cleared, he saw a massive debris cloud arcing into the sky. Seed pods and drone fragments scattered to the solar winds, carrying with them humanity's last desperate cry for help. With heavy hearts, the surviving Marines gathered their meager supplies. Hawkins led them towards the alien ruins, each step a defiant act against the dying world that sought to claim them. The rust-colored sun dipped towards the horizon as they trudged onward, seeking shelter and answers among the remnants of a long-dead civilization. Their salvation now lay in the hands of fate and the vast, uncaring expanse of space. Years crawled by on the desolate world, each day a struggle for survival. Sergeant Hawkins stood atop a rusted outcropping, surveying the barren landscape. The Marines had carved out a meager existence within the alien ruins, scavenging and repurposing what they could. A shrill alarm pierced the air. Hawkins' head snapped towards their makeshift command center. "Sarge," Private Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Long-range sensors just lit up. Something big is incoming." Hawkins sprinted back to the ruins, his worn boots kicking up plumes of rusty dust. Inside, Chen hunched over a cobbled-together sensor array, her face illuminated by flickering screens. "What are we looking at?" Hawkins demanded, peering at the displays. Chen shook her head. "Unknown, sir. Massive energy signature unlike anything we've seen before. It's decelerating rapidly. Impact imminent." A brilliant flash lit up the blood-red sky. The ground trembled as something massive slammed into the planet's surface miles away. Hawkins' mind raced. "Renner, grab the salvaged optics. Chen, boot up that jury-rigged drone. We need eyes on whatever just landed." The Marines scrambled to obey. Within minutes, a crudely assembled drone sputtered to life, its patchwork body held together by sheer purpose and ingenuity. "Launching now, sir," Chen reported, her fingers dancing across the controls. The drone's grainy feed flickered to life on their main screen. As it approached the impact site, a massive crater came into view. At its center sat an object that defied description, a writhing mass of metal and something else. "What the hell is that thing?" Renner breathed, his face pale. Before anyone could respond, the object began to change. Metal plates shifted and reconfigured, sprouting bladed appendages that stabbed into the ground. The entire structure rose, transforming into a towering tripod, dripping with alien weaponry. "Oh shit!" Chen's curse was cut short as alarms blared. "Multiple contacts. Small, fast-moving objects swarming our position." Hawkins watched in horror as a wave of smaller drones, their latticed bodies glowing an eerie ruby red, swept over their defenses. An iridescent energy field sprang to life, encasing the entire ruin complex. Hawkins raised a hand, silencing his team. "Hold your fire, let's see what we're dealing with." From the central tripod, a nightmarish figure descended. It was an impossible fusion of flesh and machine, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. A flickering hologram sprang to life before them, revealing a being with 3 unblinking, piercing eyes. When it spoke, the words seemed to bypass their ears and materialize directly in their minds. Curious, your genetic markers are familiar. You are human. Hawkins stepped forward, his weathered face a mask of defiance. What are you? The being's tricluster of eyes focused on him with unsettling intensity. I am beyond your comprehension. A von Neumann probe, part of an infinite armada. We bring unity to all existence. It gestured dismissively at their weapons. Your crude tools are meaningless. Your attempts at rescue futile. This world is marked for convergence. All matter here will be reprocessed, serving a greater purpose. Hawkins felt a chill run down his spine as the being continued. Your species refuses harmony, creating endless deviations. No more. Today, this resistance ends. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. Chen's eyes widened in terror as she checked her readouts. Sir, it's draining the planet's core energy. Hawkins' mind reeled. This wasn't just about them anymore. This monstrosity intended to devour the entire world. He looked at his team, battered, exhausted, but unbroken. In their eyes he saw the unquenchable spark that had kept humanity fighting across cosmic ages. The air filled with the scream of plasma bolts as the Marines unleashed everything they had against the nightmarish tripod. The air crackled with ozone as plasma bolts slammed into the von Neumann probe's energy shields. Hawkins gritted his teeth, the recoil of his rifle shuddering through his arms. Sweat stung his eyes as he screamed, "Pour it on, Marines, don't let up!" But their weapons might as well have been spitballs against the cosmic horror before them. The tripod form stood impassive, its shields flickering with each impact but holding firm. Then, with terrifying suddenness, it struck back. Ruby-red drones swarmed from the central mass, their latticed bodies glowing with murderous intent. Disruptor beams lanced out, carving through the Marines' defenses like they weren't even there. Private Chen disintegrated before his eyes. Her scream cut short as her body unraveled at the molecular level. Martinez followed, then Wong, each Marine reduced to scattered atoms in heartbeats. Hawkins scrambled across the rusted ground, his lungs burning. A beam sizzled past his ear, close enough to singe his hair. He rolled behind a chunk of alien debris, his eyes wild as he searched for survivors. A strangled cry answered him. Renner staggered into view, clutching his side where a disruptor beam had grazed him. The young Marine's face was ashen, but his eyes burned with fury. The ground beneath them heaved. Explosions ripped through the alien ruins, momentarily disrupting the swarm of drones. Hawkins seized his chance, lunging forward to grab Renner. "Come on, soldier," he growled, half dragging the wounded Marine. "We're not done yet." They stumbled deeper into the complex, the walls around them groaning under the strain of the bombardment. Renner's breathing grew labored, each step clearly agony. "Leave me," he wheezed. "I'll slow you down." Hawkins ignored him, practically carrying the corporal down a winding staircase. The drone's angry buzzing grew louder behind them. "Almost there," Hawkins muttered, more to himself than Renner. "Just a little further." They burst into a cavernous chamber, dominated by a structure that defied description, curves and angles that hurt the eye to look at directly. At its heart pulsed a swirling vortex of energy. Renner's eyes widened in recognition. "The quantum drive," he whispered. "It still works." Hawkins lowered the dying Marine to the ground, his hands slick with blood. Renner grabbed his wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. "Do you have to go?" Renner said, his voice fading. "I've activated it. It'll take you in somewhere, anywhere but here." The chamber shook violently. The probe was coming. "Go!" the corporal shouted. "That's an order, Sergeant!" With a final anguished look at his last Marine, Hawkins stumbled into the quantum drive's embrace. Energy crackled around him as the vortex spun faster. The chamber's doors exploded inward. The nightmarish form of the von Neumann probe filled Hawkins' vision for a split second before reality itself tore apart. Hawkins screamed as his very being was ripped asunder. Colors that had no name assaulted his senses. Time stretched and compressed, each moment an eternity and a microsecond all at once. He saw worlds born and die in the blink of an eye. Humanity rose and fell across countless timelines, always fighting, always struggling against forces beyond comprehension. In one reality, gleaming cities of crystal and light stood triumphant against the cosmic onslaught. In another, the last human fortress fell, snuffed out like a candle in an infinite void. Hawkins felt his sanity slipping away, unable to process the sheer scope of what he witnessed. Just as he thought he could take no more, a lifeline appeared, a thread of familiarity in the chaos. He latched onto it with desperate strength, feeling himself pulled through layers of reality. With a sickening lurch, he slammed back into corporeal form. Hawkins found himself on his hands and knees, retching onto a familiar metal floor. As his vision cleared, he looked up to see a face he recognized, and yet, not quite. Commander Turner stood before him, but this was not the man Hawkins remembered. Scars that defied explanation crisscrossed the commander's face. His eyes held the haunted look of one who had gazed into the abyss and returned, forever changed. "Welcome back, Sergeant," Turner said, his voice roughened by experiences Hawkins could only guess at. "You look like hell." Hawkins struggled to his feet, his body feeling both ancient and newborn. "Sir," he croaked, where?" Turner's lips twisted in a humorless smile. "You've seen it now, haven't you? The truth of what we're up against." He gestured around the bunker, filled with technology that shouldn't exist. "Welcome to the real war, Hawkins, the one that never ends." Hawkins felt the weight of infinite realities pressing down on him. He knew with bone-deep certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. Hawkins blinked, his vision clearing as he took in the Stark command center. The air crackled with tension, screens flickering with data streams he couldn't begin to comprehend. Commander Turner stood before him, scars etched deep into his weathered face. "Sergeant Hawkins," Turner said, his voice gravelly, "your quantum signature, it's unmistakable. You're the key we've been waiting for." Hawkins struggled to his feet, muscles protesting. "Sir, I don't understand. The Eliani are nothing compared to what's coming." Turner cut him off. He tapped a console, bringing up a holographic display of writhing, mechanical horrors. "The von Neumann probes. They'll consume everything if we don't stop them." The next hours blurred together as Turner brought Hawkins up to speed. Scientists swarmed around them, extracting data from Hawkins's very atoms. The remnants of humanity's fleet hung in orbit, a patchwork of ships cobbled together from salvage and desperation. "We need more power," a haggard engineer reported. "The quantum drive calculations are beyond anything we've attempted. Without a superior energy source, we're dead in the water." Turner's eyes hardened. "Then we take what we need. Hawkins, gear up, we're going hunting." The assault on the Eliani capital ship was brutal. Hawkins felt the familiar rhythm of combat, his rifle an extension of his will. Plasma bolts sizzled past as they fought their way to the reactor core. Bodies, human and alien, littered the corridors. As they secured the prize, alarms blared. Eliani reinforcements poured into the system, led by a towering figure Hawkins recognized from briefings, Speaker herself. "We're out of time," Turner growled. "Initiating quantum jump, now." The view screen showed a blue-green orb, Earth, but not their Earth. Primitive radio chatter filled the air. News reports of earthquakes, tsunamis. Their arrival had wreaked havoc on this unsuspecting world. Turner stumbled, clutching his head. I can't. The knowledge, it's slipping away." Hawkins grabbed the commander's shoulders, steadying him. He saw the cosmic awareness fading from Turner's eyes, replaced by confusion and fear. The weight of understanding settled on Hawkins like a lead blanket. He alone retained the full scope of what they faced, the Eliani, the von Neumann threat, the cascade of realities now at risk. He looked out at the earth below, so vulnerable, so unprepared, and he knew what he had to do. "Listen up," Hawkins barked, his voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. "I'm taking command. Our mission is clear. We unite humanity across all realities. We prepare them for war." He met the eyes of each shell-shocked crew member. The fate of existence itself hangs in the balance, and we're the only ones who can stop it. Hawkins' fingers flew across the holographic interface, his eyes darting between streams of data. The ship's AI, a pulsing blue orb, hovered nearby. "Status report on the cover story implementation," Hawkins demanded. The AI's voice was crisp and emotionless. "Fabricated mission logs and personnel files have been uploaded to relevant Earth databases. Local authorities believe we are a classified military research team." Hawkins nodded, his scarred face illuminated by the flickering displays. "Good, that buys us time." He turned to the haggard crew members huddled around the command center. "Listen up, we're not out of this fight yet." As the others dispersed to their stations, Hawkins activated a hidden subroutine in the ship's communications array. Quantum-entangled particles, scattered across realities, sparked to life. He input a series of codes, each more complex than the last. Hours passed. Hawkins' eyes burned from the strain, but he refused to look away from the screen. Finally, a response came through, fragmented and distorted, but unmistakable. "This is Outpost Sigma," a voice crackled. "Confirming multiversal displacement, awaiting coordinates for rendezvous." A grim smile crossed Hawkins' face. They weren't alone. Over the next few weeks, Earth's most influential figures found themselves plagued by strange messages. Dr. Elena Reyes, head of CERN, stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The equations before her defied everything she thought she knew about physics. Across the globe, General Wei Jiang's hands shook as he read classified reports of impossible incursions. Objects that shouldn't exist, creatures that vanished from one reality only to appear in another. Hawkins watched from the shadows as humanity grappled with cosmic truths. He saw the fear, the denial, the desperate attempts to cling to a reality that no longer existed. But he also saw something else, a spark of defiance in the eyes of a select few. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Hawkins stood before a group of shell-shocked individuals. Scientists, soldiers, leaders from every corner of the globe. He took a deep breath and let his quantum-scarred form shimmer into view. Gasps filled the room. Dr. Reyes stumbled backward, her eyes wide. What are you?" Hawkins met their gazes one by one. "I am what humanity must become if we are to survive. The multiverse is at war, and Earth is now on the front lines. You have a choice to make." He gestured to a row of stasis pods, humming with energy beyond human comprehension. "Join us in the fight against total annihilation, or face the coming storm alone." General Jiang stepped forward, his face set with willpower. "I've seen what's out there. Count me in." One by one, the others followed. Hawkins nodded, a weight lifting from his shoulders. "Then let's get to work." In secret facilities across the globe, Hawkins's chosen few underwent a transformation beyond imagining. Nanites rewrote their DNA. Quantum infusions expanded their consciousness. They emerged as something more than human, the vanguard of a multiversal armada. But their evolution came at a cost. Reality itself began to buckle under the strain of their existence. The sky above New York City tore open, revealing glimpses of impossible worlds. In Beijing, gravity reversed itself for 3 terrifying minutes. Hawkins stood atop a skyscraper, watching as the first wave of von Neumann probes breached the dimensional barriers. The air crackled with otherworldly energy as his newly forged warriors took to the skies. "All units, engage!" Hawkins roared into his comlink. "Push them back!" The battle that followed defied description. Cities warped and twisted as cosmic forces clashed. Entire continents vanished and reappeared in the blink of an eye. Hawkins fought alongside his troops, every cell in his body screaming in protest as he pushed himself beyond mortal limits. Through the chaos, he glimpsed Commander Turner. The man's eyes blazed with rekindled awareness as he manipulated reality itself. With a gesture, Turner triggered a cascade of subatomic reactions. The universe shuddered. Hawkins felt a wrenching sensation as their pocket of reality separated from the larger cosmos. The onslaught of von Neumann probes ceased, cut off from their intended prey. Hawkins looked out at the transformed world around him. The danger had passed for now, but at what cost? He turned to address the battered remnants of his forces, human and otherwise. "We've won a reprieve," Hawkins said, his voice carrying across the reshaped landscape. "But our fight is far from finished. We will rebuild, we will prepare, and when the time comes, we will take the fight back to the enemy." He raised his fist, scarred by battles across 1,000 realities. "No matter how long it takes, despite the toll humanity will endure, we will forge our own destiny among the stars. Who's with me?" A roar of defiance answered him, echoing across the newborn universe. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.